A true warrior needs no blade. Something that Thors told a young Thorfinn back in Season 1. And after episode 22 of Season 2, I can safely say Thors would be so proud of the man that Thorfinn has become. Because not only did he endure 100 hits, and as it's been pointed out, why didn't you just defeat him? That also would have showed your strength, would have proved you were a guard for our king. But the fact that Thorfinn has no enemies. That was said to him back in Season 1 when all he wanted to do was go off and kill and be a warrior like the other Vikings. And we finally reached a point where he refuses to be like this world is crafting. The fact that for the first time that we can ever recall in this series, Thorfinn was claimed as a true warrior and he threw no punch. He attacked no one because these are not his enemies. Why is this world this way? Why do we have to do it in this way? The fact that Olmar, someone who blames himself for being roped up into a situation because everyone around him encourages violence, is crying tears of joy and pain watching someone take all that beating and refuse to give in to the world that he views as so disgusting. This was a masterclass level of an episode and one of Vinland Saga's best yet. Full live reaction to this insanely good episode is available on my Patreon. If you do want to see my full uncut thoughts, you can head on over there and consider supporting. This was an incredible episode. There's been so many episodes in Season 2 that surpassed anything in Season 1 for me. And I know a lot of people were anticipating this episode as being that moment that would finally surpass Season 1 for them. All I can say, whether you've had multiple episodes like myself that you thought Season 2 rose above anything of Season 1, or this may be the first time it did so, we can all agree that Season 2 is a masterclass anime. It is a perfect adaptation, it enhances, it adds things, it just, every time you read discussions from anime originals to source readers, it's like we're collectively holding hands and saying, this should be the go. And it is incredible to see just the pain, the anguish, like 32 punches, I mean, that's gonna hurt. Think back to the fight between Snake and Thorfinn. It was a pretty brief fight, but they were panting and exhausted after a couple of minutes of going at it that fast, swinging the swords, because realistically, you would get winded from a fight. So someone throwing as hard as they can a punch 32 times or 20 times, a dozen times, you're gonna get winded and you're going to feel that. And had Thorfinn had to take 100 punches at full strength, he would die. I don't think there's any arguing that fact. But the thing that Thorfinn had on his side is that with each of those punches, because they weren't taking breaks, he got more and more winded. So by the time the 100 punches came, it was basically just a tap. And I don't think anyone really expected that a man that seems so proud, arrogant, and was like, I'm gonna kill this little short kid, would come out saying, I respect you, because that's what happened. The fact that that entire group of proud killers betting on how long it was going to take before he died, if you don't get to 100, we're going to kill you, they came out of that saying, Buddy didn't lift a hand. He knew what to do. He turned the other cheek. He twisted his body to get rid of a lot of the impact, but it doesn't change the fact that he refused. He did the thing that they've never seen done before, that he actually endured. Like, the strength of this warrior is something they didn't ever think they would see. And the fact that I think they collectively understood that someone who could take 100 punches like that most likely could deliver 100 punches right back and potentially kill any one of them there. And the fact that he didn't, the fact that he's refusing to give in, when you compare how guilty Olmar feels, that he's got dragged into this, like he's surrounded by father, brother, all these killers, and that's who he thought he had to be, and seeing all the dead bodies that he blames himself for having happened. I mean, to look at someone who refuses to give into this world, that's the type of man that Olmar wants to be, and you can see it in his face while he looks. He didn't even have a single line spoken, yet he had so much characterization in this episode just by how he viewed Thorfinn. And we finally get the meeting between King Canute and Thorfinn. And there's, a lot of things happened at the end of Season 1. Thorfinn, when Askeladd ended up getting killed, he drew a dagger and he sliced Canute's cheek. And Canute stopped the guards from killing him, and as we see, he ended up a slave, and there's a lot of tension. The last time they met, they were both two very different characters. Thorfinn, a pretty angry killer, and Canute, someone who wanted to build paradise and seemed like a very hopeful and noble king. Now we have Thorfinn, doesn't want to kill, and Canute, who would kill any family member if it meant getting to paradise as he sees it. I love how it's not a black or white conversation. Thorfinn even says, I never even thought about saving the Vikings because he didn't think it'd be a possibility. And I think when you look at throughout different historical periods in our time period where you have different rulers throughout history, the whole idea of almost going up against God is something that, some people might want to scoff at, but that was like a real opinion that different rulers who chased power really did want to confront God, all things considered. And the idea of not being able to stop the waves in the ocean, the idea that how could we build somewhere that could be peaceful when this world is anything other than that. And the idea of, I think my favorite point in this entire episode is prior to him meeting with Canute, he basically says, I have no enemies. You aren't my enemies. Why would I fight? Like the fact that there was no dialogue, the fact that as soon as swords were drawn, they drew their swords right back. Why couldn't you just talk it out? Why couldn't you have a game to determine all this bullshit? So with Thorfinn being surrounded by 100 men, or however many are there, we know Thorfinn isn't going to be a hypocrite, right? He has to live by what he's saying, that as soon as swords are drawn on you, are you just gonna immediately fight right back? Obviously, we know he can defend himself and will defend himself need be, but I think this is what's going to be interesting because we have two, as next episode's called, two paths, I believe is what it's titled. There's a character who wants you to leave the farm, stop hurting, stop stealing, just let people live. And another who says, this all started, yes, we know Canute was going to do it no matter what, but 10 men were killed, yeah, but you killed 100 men. And what do we do? The best case scenario that I can see is that Keto gets to live, in terms of what Thorfinn's trying to do here, saying, yeah, you already killed so many, so just strip him of ownership of the land, maybe put Omar in charge, now that we know he's a pretty decent fellow, all things considered. Maybe we can go the route of having maybe not ownership over the farm anymore, but maybe allowed to work at a better point than maybe your general servants. I don't know. But either way, we leave an episode of Vinland Saga seeing Thors again. And it's not because we had that quick little flashback, but because we see a version of Thorfinn that we never thought we would with how he was all throughout Season 1. And it took a majority of Season 2 to get here, but this is the type of man that the most powerful character that Vinland Saga knows in terms of, Thors, I think, is, most people agree, as the #1 fighter. And the fact that a warrior needs no sword, you have no enemies. It takes a hell of a lot more strength from this world to refuse violence when the entire Viking era is all about dying on the battlefield and killing others, pillaging, and that's what made it such a 10 out of 10 episode. The voice work was incredible. I knew Thorfinn was going to look rather beat just based on last week's preview, but when you actually see how up close they go, his nose was about 4 times the size. He was coughing up teeth, he was coughing up blood. They went in hard, and man, did that conversation deliver, especially given how different of a character both of them were back in Season 1. And have someone like Einar at one point looking like, bro, you attacked a king, and then near the end he wanted to do the same thing. There was a lot to love about this, but I'll pass the torch over to you. What did you think of this incredible Vinland Saga episode? Let me know your feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload more Vinland Saga on the channel, and as I mentioned, full live reaction is available on my Patreon if you're interested. And while you're there, you also get a video shoutout like Azope, Benjamin Henderson, Eds, and Eleanor Bailey-Tufts are getting today. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.